my name's Isobel. I'm a product owner at DSW. We're an independent endpoint assessment organisation. We've been approved by the government and appointed by your employer to carry out endpoint assessment for the coaching professional apprenticeship. In this short video, I'm going to give you a brief overview of what's assessed, how it's assessed, and who carries out the assessments. Hopefully, it will help you to feel confident and well prepared for your assessments, so you have a great experience and hopefully a positive outcome as well. Your apprenticeship standard was designed by a group of employers. They came up with the knowledge, skills and behaviours they feel somebody needs to demonstrate in order to be competent as a coaching professional. Our responsibility as an endpoint assessment organisation is to carry out that endpoint assessment and assess you against the knowledge, skills and behaviours to confirm that you are indeed competent. Your entire endpoint assessment will be carried out by a single assessor. That's somebody that's appointed by DSW. They'll be an expert from your industry and also an expert in carrying out workplace vocational assessments. They're there to put you at ease. They aren't there to catch you out in any way. And the questions that they ask will be based on the work that you've already put forward as part of the portfolio and the observations. The areas covered in each assessment are clearly laid out in the toolkit, so you'll know exactly what to expect. These knowledge, skills and behaviours have been designed by employers. This includes a broad range of organisations that all employ coaches within their business. You can be assured that the knowledge, skills and behaviours you'll develop represent the cutting edge of the profession. They'll provide you with the expertise you need to perform at the highest level within your job role and across the industry. So the knowledge, skills and behaviour statements are combined into what we call pass and distinction descriptors. The pass and distinction descriptors group those knowledge, skills and behaviours together. They'll provide you with clear performance indicators relating to different areas of coaching. There are 14 pass descriptors in your apprenticeship programme, and it's these pass descriptors that you're going to be assessed against, so it's really key that you get to know them very well. As well as that, you might be aware you can achieve a distinction in this apprenticeship. There are an additional 8 distinction level criteria that will need to be met as well as the pass criteria. The knowledge test is a bit different. It just assesses the knowledge criteria, and there are 9 of those to cover in that test. Because this is a brief overview, we won't go into too much detail about those here. There's a lot more detail in the DSW toolkit, which is available via your training provider. In there, you'll find more detailed guidance around what's expected in order to meet each criterion, how it's assessed, and there are mock resources in there to help you prepare. Your entire endpoint assessment will be based on the pass and distinction descriptors listed in that toolkit. Be rest assured there are no trick questions and the assessor will do their best to put you at ease. So we have the pass criteria that are assessed and the assessment methods. There are 3 methods that make up this endpoint assessment. The assessments can be taken in any order. There's a knowledge test, which is taken online at a date of your choice. There's an observation with Q&A and a professional discussion based on your portfolio of evidence. All of these will take place once you've gone through Gateway. We're going to start with the knowledge test. Once you go through Gateway, you'll be given a login for question mark and a guide explaining how to use it. This will allow you to practice the mock exam, get to know the system, but most importantly, book your live exam. The knowledge test is taken under exam conditions and it's all completed online. It'll be 40 questions, 30 of those will be multiple choice, each will have 4 possible answers and 1 of those will be correct. The other 10 will also be multiple choice with 4 possible answers, but they will also be based on 2 given scenarios. You'll have a maximum of 90 minutes to complete the test, and the toolkit gives you a lot more detail on the theories and models that are covered so you can prepare for the test. We'll move on to the observation with Q&A. This is all done in one day. Your DSW assessor will observe you conducting 2 coaching sessions. Following the second session, there will be a Q&A where the assessor will ask you a series of questions based on their observation of those sessions. The observations are a maximum of 60 minutes each and the Q&A is a maximum of 20 minutes. Carrying out some mock assessments is a great idea here so you can see how the assessment criteria are going to be covered through the sessions and make sure you can answer questions within the time limit as well. You can find some sample questions in the toolkit to give you an idea of what might be asked, and we've also broken down exactly what should be covered in the observations and what might be covered with the questions. All of the questions are based around the grading criteria, so as long as you know those well, none of the questions should be a surprise. Finally, we have your portfolio of evidence. This will be developed over the on-programme phase of the apprenticeship before you reach Gateway. What we're asking for is that you pull together examples of the best pieces of work you've done during your apprenticeship. We recommend you begin collecting evidence as early as possible. When you reach Gateway, you should select your best pieces of evidence to create a showcase. Your training provider will support you with this. In the toolkit, you've got a mapping document. You'll work with your line manager and with the coach at the training provider. They'll help you look at your work and identify if it maps to those past descriptors. The referencing document covers all of the descriptors being covered in the interview, so you'll put evidence against each one. You might find you might need a few pieces of evidence to cover some criteria in full, and that's absolutely fine. Once you're ready for Gateway, you'll submit that portfolio to DSW electronically. Then our assessor will review it and use it to prepare questions for the interview. The portfolio needs to contain a blend of evidence, such as observation reports, feedback from managers, supervisors or peers, and examples of real work that you've done. The interview takes place just between yourself and the assessor. It's the same assessor that's reviewed your portfolio, so by now they've got a good idea of the type of work you've been involved in, and the interview is to explore that in a bit more detail. They'll be looking for evidence of any of the past descriptors that perhaps weren't quite met in the portfolio. So they'll start with that, make sure that it's all been covered and you've met those outcomes before moving on to the distinction criteria. They'll also use the interview as a bit more of a deep dive. It's a really good opportunity to get your character and your personality across, sell the best version of yourself, talk about your approach to work and get your passion for coaching across. The interview is up to 60 minutes and it takes place online using Zoom, Teams or WebEx. If you've got a different platform you would prefer to use, let your training provider know. The chances are we can accommodate that. The questions are based on your portfolio, so the good thing is that there are no curveball questions. The assessor isn't going to ask questions to trip you up, and it won't be a surprise because you've seen all of the past and distinction criteria and you've mapped your evidence to it as well. You can actually bring your portfolio of evidence into the interview with you and some notes. So if you're asked a question as part of the discussion, you can refer to your own notes and remind yourself of what they're referring to. It's a great idea to have some bullet points in your notes of what you intend to cover. It saves you having to search through your portfolio each time. And again, there are some sample interview questions in the toolkit, and that will help give you a good idea of the type of questions you might be asked. We've got lots of resources available to help you get ready for your assessments. Your training provider works closely with DSW to understand our requirements when it comes to your endpoint assessment. If there's anything you don't understand, your tutor or coach is your first port of call and they'll be there to help and support you. Here are a few tips which apprentices have found useful. Make use of the resources. We've got templates you can use and the toolkit contains extensive guidance on what's required for each pass and distinction criteria, as well as more detail about how each assessment will work. Start early, build in regular checkpoints to review potential portfolio evidence as the programme progresses rather than waiting until the end. Pick out the best pieces of evidence from what you've collected. You don't want something brilliant to get lost in a mass of evidence, so make sure every piece of evidence that's submitted is there for a specific reason. You'll be discussing those pieces of evidence in the interview, so make sure you know them inside out. Use naturally occurring evidence wherever possible. Evidence that covers real work situations will really bring your portfolio to life. If you're struggling to find evidence for a particular area, speak to your coach or tutor in good time and make sure you can cover it. Familiarise yourself with the pass and distinction criteria and the amplification. The key is to really break down the pass and distinction criteria and make sure they're being covered fully. Look at the wording, look at the difference between a pass and a distinction. The command verbs that are used will indicate the level of depth that's required, and the amplification document goes into a lot more detail and explains those concepts for you. Go through your evidence and see which areas might be potentially weaker. You can use multiple evidence sources to cover one pass descriptor if you need to. The most important part is that you cover each one in full. Practice, practice, practice. Mock discussions, observations, knowledge tests are all a fantastic way for you to become more comfortable discussing your evidence, for you to make sure you can cover all of the points in the available time. Take the mock knowledge test and make sure you can answer all of the questions, and make sure you're comfortable using question mark ahead of the live assessment so there aren't any surprises on the day. I just want to finish by wishing you the best of luck in your endpoint assessment and your career in coaching. We hope you have a great experience and hopefully a positive outcome as well. Thank you.